this is Jodi. Thanks for joining me. Today I'm going to show you another card made with one of my favorite stamp sets, Happy Watercolor from the Current Occasions catalog with Stampin' Up! So, to make this card, we're using some Island Indigo cardstock as well as the Watercolor Wonder designer paper. Let's go ahead and get started. The base of the card is Island Indigo. It's 8.5 by 5.5. And then I just use my bone folder to get a good crisp fold and fold it in half for the base. The next layer, as I mentioned, is from the Watercolor Wonder Designer Series paper. All of Stampin' Up! Papers are double-sided, so you can see there's another pattern on the back that we're not using this time. And we'll just layer this right on here. This one is 4 inches by 5.25. I'm going to start on the focal point. This piece of Whisper White cardstock is 2 inches by 3 3/4 of an inch, and I'm going to use some jet black StazOn ink. This is really the only black ink pad I use. I love it for all of my projects. Now, a quick tip, when you take the stamp, what I would recommend is tapping it on the ink pad and then just gliding it to get the stem inked up. If you push too hard down here, you're going to get ink along the edges, which would then potentially come off on your project. So tap the top of it and slide for the rest. And then this is just going to get stamped right here in the relative middle of this piece of Whisper White. Now I'm pushing down hard on the top of the flower. I'm not going to use that same pressure down here. I'm just going to lightly press there and push down heavier there. So then I get my clean image. Let's get this out of the way. We're all set with that. Another little piece that comes in the stamp set is this thank you. And I'm going to take this tiny little piece. This is a 1/2 inch by 1 3/4 of an inch. Now you could certainly stamp on a bigger piece and then cut it down afterwards. Hopefully I'll be able to get it centered on here right away. We'll see. This is Island Indigo ink. So we'll just take that. Let's see how it goes. Good. Always you have 2 chances. If I didn't like the way this looked, I'd flip it over and use the back. And like I said, you can certainly start with a bigger piece and then cut around it afterwards. The next thing I want to do is take this piece again with the Island Indigo ink. And this time I'm going to use an aqua painter. This is just like a paintbrush. The water is down here in the barrel. This unscrews, you can fill it up with water again, but it's just really easy to do some watercoloring. When you do any type of watercoloring, you need to remember that you can always go back and add more. So I'm going to start with some light color all the way around on this flower. And like I said, I can always go back, pick up more ink and make it darker in certain spots, but I don't want to start with too much because there's not a lot you can do with it if you realize it's more than you want. I'm just tapping on here. It seems like there's a little bit extra water, so I'm just tapping on my scrap paper to get some of that water off. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just go back now and pick up more ink and just kind of go over these lines in the stamped image. So I'm just going to kind of make it darker in those places where the lines already are. Go all the way around. There's no right or wrong to this whatsoever. You can just keep blending the colors, and every time you do it, it's going to give you a different look. I think it would be next to impossible to get the same look twice. I should mention too, this card was inspired by someone on my Stampin' Up! Team. Her name is Brenda Rodimer, and she brought this card to one of our team meetings as a show and tell. We always bring projects to share with each other and just inspire each other's creativity, and so this one was inspired by her and her show and tell a couple months ago. Okay. You could play with this and just keep adding as much color as you want to. To clean this off, I'm just going to swipe it on here, make sure no ink is left. And I'm going to pull in some So Saffron ink and just take a little bit to do the center of the flower. Just put a little bit of yellow right there in the center. And swipe again. And now this is another stamped image that comes in the Happy Watercolor, and I'm going to take it with some smoky slate ink and stamp around this flower. So I'm going to tap it on here, stamp on my scrap paper, and then onto here. I want it to be lighter, so that's why I'm doing that. And I'm actually going to stamp it a couple of times. So tap it, scrap paper, and then a couple of times on here. And just kind of randomly, I twist the stamp a little bit as I twist the cardstock as well. And it's okay if it goes over on the flower a little bit. It's not going to affect it at all. Yeah, just a little bit more down here and here. And maybe there. Okay, stop. Sometimes you can get a little too crazy when you're trying to do backgrounds too. Okay, so I'll just put my adhesive on the back of here. When I watercolor, the paper, if I'm not using watercolor paper, can kind of curl up a little bit, so I'll use a little bit more than normal adhesive just to keep it flat on my card. Then I'll just turn it over and rub on there to get it stuck right on there. Now before I add this to the card, I want to take some of our, this one's not going to work. Let me grab my other spool. Okay, much better. This is our stitched grosgrain ribbon. This is gumball green, which is the same green that you see on this designer paper here. So I'm just going to wrap it around and cut about that much. I'm going to tie a knot, not a bow, just a knot. So this should be plenty of ribbon. So I'm taking the right piece and putting it over the left piece, and then I'm pulling this down through, and instead of pulling it this way like when you're tying your shoes, I'm pulling it perpendicular and pulling it really tight. It'll even curl the paper up a little bit. And then I'm going to bring the one from the bottom up. Let me get that straight. The bottom comes up and around, and then I'll just push that through, and then you should get a knot that lies nice and flat. And then I'll just use my craft scissors again to trim up the ends. And then this piece will get added to the card using some Stampin' Dimensionals. I'll put one in each corner. And peel the backs off. And this just gets kind of centered on the card. And then the last thing I want to do is go back to this little thank you. Now I want to add this right here on the bottom of the card. So what I'm going to do, underneath the T, I'm going to put one Stampin' Dimensional. Peel that backing off right away. And then on the other end, I'm going to put one, peel it off, and add another one right on top of it. The reason that I'm doing that is because if you look, this piece right here is already raised up with one dimensional. So by putting this on here, I've now really got the height of 2 on this side, which needs me to have 2 over here to keep it flat. So there's another quick and creative card. I hope you enjoyed it and that you'll give it a try. Thanks for watching.
For daily creative inspiration, visit my blog or find me on Facebook at Jodi Reinert Stamps.